Okay, it's my third video. I'm Julie Grimm, and I'm talking about mental health. And if you want to know more about me, please watch the intro or first video where I talk a little bit more about myself. But essentially, I have a background in neurobiology, and I work for the Boston Public School System, teaching meditation to both traumatized populations of children as well as more normal kids. But let's be real, because most kids in the school system today have anxiety, depression, or some other ailment, disease, diagnosis, mental health problem. Beyond all of that, I also have suffered from depression and suicidal thoughts within my own life and have reached, I don't know if I would say the end of it, but a totally different level. And how did I reach that level? In my second video, I mentioned a little bit about how healing works and operates in the body, and how we often have to hit a critical point in order to really trigger the healing machinery that's going to come in and help us move forward. And I believe that in part that was a huge part of my own healing, that I allowed myself to go to deeper, darker spaces. And in fact, now that I have more tools, more inner strength, I've actually gone to deeper and darker places. The difference being that I don't stay in a depressive state. I hit a tipping point of sadness, of despair, of rage, of anger, of whatever it is, and then there's release. I can continue. So today's video is these tools. What tools do we have in our life or that are out there accessible to each of us to move through this healing crisis? Because healing crisis, we're basically doing everything we can to avoid the healing crisis. It's scary. And we don't feel capable of going there. I mentioned in the intro video, but I work with traumatized children. What's the difference between a traumatized child and a child that sees the exact same event but walks away perfectly fine? Their ability to be and process the physicality of their emotional response. Peter Levine wrote a book about somatic experiencing called Waking the Tiger. He has some really interesting studies and real life experience now with a whole branch of psychology on how we physically feel and move through and process strong emotional reactions. In children that meet adversity or meet something that feels scary, but meet it feeling like they're in control and they're empowered, find resiliency. They find grit. They find strength. Children who meet an experience or an obstacle but feel less than, feel overwhelmed, instead get traumatized. And that's how trauma happens. Because we feel like we're the victim. We feel smaller than the situation. We feel like we don't have the tools. We don't feel capable to meet what life is giving us. And obviously in circumstances of traumatized children and youth, who can blame them? Who can blame them? And yet through the work that I do, I find that by giving them these tools, which I'm about to give you, I empower not only children, but adults and myself as well to take back control and to realize our own power and our own strength when we hit all sorts of obstacles, whether they're emotional or otherwise. And that's what's going on in depression as well. When we begin to realize, like, I am as strong as the sadness that I feel. And I am stronger than the despair that I feel. And I can handle it. And I can feel it fully. And I can continue onwards. That's where we allow ourselves to hit the healing crisis. And we allow ourselves to go into the depths, which then allows us to move forward and move beyond. So the tools that I'm going to give you, you don't need to do with another person, but often with depression, which is so isolating and such an isolating experience for most of us, I would suggest that you ask for help, that you ask for support, that you do this practice potentially with somebody, a parent, a friend, family member, somebody that you feel safe with, that you feel you can confide in, and you feel would really truly has your best interests at heart. Because although you can do these things alone, there's so much more power when we do them together. The first tool is meditation. How does meditation work? So, okay, it's relaxing, but more than being relaxing, meditation gives you a different perspective on what's happening. So yeah, here's you. Here's you in your depression. Oh, this is me. I'm so sad. I'm not trying to make fun. It's not funny, but it's a little funny. And when you meditate, you can raise to this higher perspective. You can see yourself. And you begin to realize, oh my gosh, I'm so much bigger than the sadness. In fact, the sadness is within me. Perhaps it's always been within me. My whole life I've been carrying it around within me. Which means that, yeah, I'm stronger than it because I've been literally weightlifting it my entire life. And so to sit with it for this one moment, to really face it for this one moment, and to say, I'm at least as big, if not bigger than you for this one moment, it can feel really scary. But in doing that, you're finally asserting your size, the fact that you're in control, the fact that you have the power. And when you do this through meditation, observing the emotions as they come up, observing your thoughts as they come up, you begin to gain perspective. That's not me. I feel this way. I think this way, but it's not me. I'm bigger than that. I'm bigger than that. And this gives you the possibility to overcome adversity. This gives you empowerment. This gives you grit. This gives you resiliency. And I see it with the kids that I work with. They feel overwhelmed, like they couldn't possibly handle the sadness that they feel or that they see in the world. And then when you bring them to meditation, they find a peaceful place that's always accessible within them. And it's not avoidance. It's not avoidance. It's not distraction. It's learning that you can have that great sadness and you can have at the same time that peace. That when you really zoom out with your perspective, you can allow for really different experiences of life at the same time and see this bigger picture and see beyond. So another tool that I use is energy healing and energy work, specifically something called life activation. And why I think this is really helpful also takes a little bit of a scientific explanation. So specifically in depression, but probably in other disorders like ADHD, especially where we don't have a singular cause, right? Scientists are trying to find like, well, what caused it? There wasn't a life event. There's not specifically something in the DNA. Like why, right? Why? This person should be totally happy. Why? And what I think here is going on is something that involves epigenetics, which is the modification of your genetic code over time, whether through inherited epigenetic factors, so it's like levels on top of your DNA that you inherited from your mother or father, or even from your own life. And that can be environmental, it can be from habits, it can be from many different things. And they look, for example, at twins who were born identically, and then one becomes a chain smoker. So his DNA is actually getting modified through his whole life because of those habits that he picked up. But it can also happen, as I mentioned, inheritedly. So that, let's say your mother or your father has a really traumatic event that will actually get stored epigenetically on your DNA. And so later on, kids will be born with sort of a feeling of existential angst, not really sure where it came from. And perhaps, this hasn't been scientifically proven, but perhaps it actually might have been inherited, not even from the generation before, but maybe even generations much further along, way long time ago in the past. And when we do the life activation, which is an energy healing that I mentioned, it actually works on your genetic code. And one of the reasons why I think it's so powerful is that it's working on that level of the core level of your being, the code of your whole entire body and every single cell within your body. But it helps to heal and to clear away that sort of debris that might have been inherited from years ago that you might not be aware of at all. And for that reason, especially for things like trauma and depression, where it's being stored so physically within the body, which causes it to be really, really hard to overcome using typical therapies or even meditation alone. Things like life activation can be really supportive and just really help people move into a whole new state of being in their life. Kind of like rinsing off, taking a little bit of a shower. And I know for myself, it was hugely helpful in releasing a lot of really negative, both mindsets, but also behaviors in my life. Specifically like numbing agents that I was using to not feel. And all of a sudden I was strong enough to feel. And the result was joy. I had gone through the pain. I just hadn't let myself bottom out there. And once you do that and you let yourself really go to the bottom, there's joy. That's how it works. So I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this series. Perhaps I'll make some more because I know I had a really good time making it. And I would just love to hear any of your feedback or comments. And of course, if you or a loved one struggle with depression or any of the other things that I've mentioned, know that I'm here as a resource, and I would love to hear from you and to talk to you and hear your story. I do think that we're at a critical point historically where people need to really speak out about mental health so that we can get the help that we need and move past it and be healed. So thank you guys so much for watching. Take care.